Well, I've been training many hours in European setups, and all of those European setups use very empiric knowledge, meaning that all the players will be doing the same training, and so it is very not individual. We will all be doing the same as if we're all the same person. So you're basically creating clones or repeating training methods that worked for somebody, but would probably not work for the same person. And I've been thinking, what can we do about this? How can we go back to being very individual in an individual sport? So you will mostly train the physical part outside of the squash courts. You will either go to a gym. There is even some setups which will refer to different sports. So you'll try CrossFit or even different stuff. And so you're really not training squash-specific movements, which seems a bit odd. And so I've been also looking in the solution for this. And then a few years back, I did a training camp in Egypt where you will actually do most of the physical parts on the squash court. So you will be doing ghostings, you will have specific exercises to work on your squash movement, and only a little part is done outside of the squash court. So after looking around, I found an approach created by Mr. Siberas. He was the coach of Thierry Lacoux, who used to be world number one, which actually links all the four components you will have in squash together. So you have the physical, the cognitive, the technical, and the mental aspect. And all of those are linked together in every single training you will do. So even though you might have one training with a focus on one specific points, we will make sure to still have the other 3 points included in that training. So once I found that approach, I also needed a mentor to somehow teach me the approach. And as life wants it, Emmanuel Crouin, the father of Victor Crouin, who also accepted to train my sister, is using this approach. And so he agreed to teach me this approach so I can use it myself to help to train my sister, but also create now the Squash Systems Academy in Barcelona. So firstly, as just mentioned, this approach is non-empiric. So it is an exchange between the trainer and the player. And so this approach is constantly improving. So that's the first big improvement. Secondly, I can use simplified ways of this approach and link all the components of squash for amateur players. So before, when you had someone coming in and wanting to try squash, you need to tell them, okay, you need to work on your fitness and on your mental aspect and on this aspect. And they used to go to all those hours of trainings. And with those simplified ways, I can do 1 hour with me and we'll be training all the aspects squash has. And we will then also be using this approach for squash camps for juniors and amateur players. Well, thank you very much for the interview, and I hope to see you guys all very soon in Barcelona, either for the squash camp or just for a private lesson.